Do you think smartphones increase or decrease productivity? By the time you're done watching this video, you're going to have the answer to that question. We're going to start off by separating fact from fiction on how phone impact differs by age. We'll discuss how most of us have no idea what productivity really is, let alone how to measure it. And lastly, we're going to take a look at some of the benefits and negatives of smartphones before I deliver my final verdict. You ready to get started? Let's go. Let's start off by separating fact from fiction when it comes to smartphone usage. Let's compare the use of smartphones and our playing on our smartphones to how much time we spend watching television. The truth of the matter is, if we were to look at how much time we spent watching television in the 90s and how much time we spend consuming television and other things on our smartphones now, it's remained about the same for adults. So we're not actually wasting more time in general on our time off using smartphones and other devices. However, the bad news is that time has doubled for kids. Kids spend over 2 times as much time on their smartphones as they did watching television in the 90s. And so we can say that kids have lost productivity, but adults really haven't. We can't say that kids have lost productivity because they're spending more time on these devices, but that's not necessarily the story of adults. So with that myth out of the way, let's go ahead and define productivity next. Productivity is the efficient production of goods and services by some measure. That's all it is. So are you producing goods and services efficiently according to a particular measure? Now that we have the definition underway, we get a chance to start looking at our question of if smartphones have a positive or a negative impact on our efficiency. So here's the challenge, and I hear this a lot in the workplace, especially when it comes to remote workers. Technology has made us more efficient and that we can get more done in less time. The problem is that the old guard in many workplaces measure productivity in terms of how long are people working. That's actually not what productivity is. If someone can produce the same output in a smaller amount of time, they are more proficient. They are more productive. They are more efficient. And so it's not really smart to say, maybe our workers play on social media for 30 minutes a day, they're less productive, if they're actually producing the same input that they did 5 years ago in less time, and them playing on their smartphone for 30 minutes actually has no negative impact on the output. What that does do, though, is for bosses that measure productivity in terms of the amount of time, which that's not what productivity is, it makes them think that smartphones are a negative force in the workplace. And so either we have to redefine what productivity is, or we have to redefine how we look at it. So let's look at this another way. What many companies have found is that employees can produce the same amount of output working 5 hours from home that used to take them 8 hours in the workplace. And so what's happening is that bosses are saying our workers are less productive, but their outputs haven't changed. They're actually hitting their KPIs, their key performance indicators. And so really what the bosses want are more control. And so what happens is now we have these companies that are trying to monitor their remote workers. They're trying to see if they're logged in, if they're moving their keys around. And as a result, the answer is now we have employees that are buying things like those mouse movers. I don't know if you've seen those where you buy them and it just moves their mouse around. So the programs, the intrusive programs the employers have put on to make sure that their employees are doing something every minute of the day, they're finding a way to combat this level of micromanagement. But we have to be very clear that this is not about productivity. The only way that that makes sense is if we've actually increased the amount of output that we expect from our employees. If we've increased it, then we might say you're not hitting this level we've increased it to. If they're hitting their goals that you set for them, and they're just doing it in less time, we can't really penalize them and say that they're less productive because now they're utilizing that extra time to do other things, which might include playing on their phone. Let's stop for a second. Have you ever been in a workplace where your boss was demanding that you work the same amount of hours when you could easily get the work done in less time? How did you feel? Have you ever found yourself to be much more efficient when working from home than work, but you weren't given the opportunity to continue doing so? Did it make you leave your job? I'm just curious to know what your experience has been. Please go ahead and drop your experience in the comments. I'd love to start a conversation around it. So let's talk about what smartphones can definitely do for productivity. Number one, it allows us to work smart on the go. Do you remember 15 years ago, answering emails on your phone efficiently was not really a thing? Signing contracts from your phone, not really a thing. Project management software. So oftentimes I keynote for construction and building related groups. They have so much incredible project management software on their phone where one person can manage teams of thousands of people on different sites just from their device. That alone lets us know that smartphones can definitely have a positive impact on our productivity. But let's balance that out. I believe in being fair. I've talked about how we can basically manage large teams using our smartphones. We've all also walked into stores before and received poor customer service because someone was much more concerned with what was on their phone than helping us. That happens to me quite frequently, honestly, where I come up to a desk somewhere, maybe it's a cashier, maybe it's at a restaurant, and you see someone on their phone. You might see your server at the restaurant. I haven't seen them in a while. They haven't offered us any water refills. You look, they're playing on the phone around the corner. So we can see how it can have a negative impact as well. So let's take this personal before we come out with our final answer. Are you getting more or less done at home than you used to prior to smartphones? Now, before you answer that question, I want you to think about delivery services. Think about Amazon. How many trips does it save you to Home Depot or grocery store? Think about grocery delivery apps. Do you ever order groceries? Or what about food delivery? Now, I'm not saying we didn't have food delivery before the invention of the smartphone, but we had much fewer choices. Most of the time, unless you were located in New York or maybe Chicago, if you were doing delivery, you were pretty much getting Chinese food or pizza. So if you wanted any more than that, many other stores didn't deliver. Now all kinds of stores deliver via apps. I don't know if you're like me, but I even use apps for car washing services. There's an app called Washay where someone will show up and wash your car. I use the Tide Cleaners app where they'll come and pick up clothes from my house and wash them and return them back a few days later, nicely folded and scented. So think about how much you get done at home and how much of that can be contributed to having a smartphone. Even think about work. Has work been more or less efficient since you've had access to a smartphone? Answering emails on the go, maybe even using something like generative AI on your phone to answer a question or to brainstorm something very quickly. Do you think overall you're more or less productive at home or at work as a result of smartphones? So it's time for me to deliver my verdict. And if you disagree with me, feel free to tell me in the comments. But when I weigh everything and I look at all the data from one direction and the other, when we look at the definition of productivity, and it's more about creating the same level of output, even if it's in less amount of time, I have to say, I think smartphones have made us more productive as humans. Now, I'm not saying there haven't been any negative effects along the way for those of you that are like, "Rah," and feel free to disagree with me in the comments. But overall, we get more done in less time thanks to smartphones. Speaking of smartphones, I have something that you can download on your smartphone or any device that you like. You'll notice in the description of this video, there's a link to download the Future Ready Playbook. This playbook was created especially for you, and it's a workbook that's chock full of activities that will help you future-proof yourself, your career, and your organization. Take a moment and download it today.